Is this Michael? Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. My name is Felicia Antonio, and I'll be your moderator for the next 1 hour, 30 minutes for this session we are having. As you would all know, today, November 4, marks 2 years since the internet was disrupted in Ethiopia's Tigray region when conflict broke out in 2020. And so we are here today to discuss with various experts on this panel how the internet shutdown has impacted their various aspects of life, as well as the work that they do in Tigray, and to also let us know some of the advocacy efforts that they've been doing with regard to raising awareness about the human rights violations happening in the country, in the region, as well as how they have continued their work as activists, as health professionals, as individuals, as academia, and as people that just use the internet for various courses. And so before we go into the discussion properly, I would want our panelists to introduce themselves. We would get into detail about your work. And so I would say just spend like a few seconds telling us who you are, where you're joining us from, and if possible, how the internet shutdown affected you very briefly before we go into the discussion. So I would start with Zara, if you don't mind.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, my name is Sarah Gebru. I'm joining you today from Hamburg in Germany. Yeah, I grew up in Germany. I'm a software developer, and I have been in Tigray, in particular in Marelle, during the first 6 weeks of the war, and also had some struggle to come back to Germany because of issues with communication. And yeah, now I'm here since almost 2 years.
Thank you so much. I will move to Aiden.
Hello, everybody. My name is Aiden Kasa. I am from Virginia, USA. I used to live in Marelle at the start of the war for 3 months or so before I returned back to the States. So I am one of the co-founders for Legacy Tigray Advocacy Group, but also a program manager for HPN for Tigray. And I have not spoken to my family till now, so that's how it has affected me.
Thank you. While we are introducing ourselves, I just want to say that one of our panelists will be joining us later. And so I would go ahead and let Milite introduce herself.
Thank you, Felicia. My name is Milite Berhana Mescal. I live in Denver, Colorado. I am a Tigrayan and also a journalist. I was a former newspaper reporter and now work the English desk at Tigray Media House. I too haven't spoken to most of my family in the past 2 years, and I'm trying desperately to get the stories out from people who have been silenced.
Thank you. Leke?
Thank you. My name is also Laaka Zagaya. I was also in Tigray in Marelle when the genocidal war started. After the genocidal invasion, I also stayed in Marelle for a couple of months and left, became a refugee in Kenya, and now I have started my PhD and I'm doing a PhD. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kibrom?
Thank you. I'm Kibrom. I'm the Chief Executive Director of Idor Hospital. I'm in Marelle right now from the beginning of the war till now. I'm in the hospital in Marelle, Tigray. And the communication blackout or the internet as well as phone communication blackout has affected my entire life, as we will see later in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Michael.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Michael Abraha. I'm the NFT lead product manager with the Tigray Art Collective. I am from the DC area, and this siege has affected me directly. I have not had access and or contact with my family in Adwa for about 2 years now.
Thank you so much. Yes, this internet shutdown and the stories that we've received since the shutdown began has clearly shown how much the internet shutdown has prevented people from communicating with their family, which is supposed to be a daily, a basic need. But this time around, it's become really difficult for people within Tigray and outside of Tigray to be able to communicate with their families when they want to talk to them. And so we'll be hearing more about the various ways that this has impacted you. Before we go into the discussion, I would also want to say that the Access Now and the Keep It On Coalition just launched a petition to amplify our call to restore internet access in Tigray. And today being 2 years, which shouldn't have happened in the first place, denying people access to the internet is unacceptable. And so I want to say that our audience, please do make time to sign the petition and then raise awareness about what is happening in Tigray, and also join and support the Keep It On Coalition, which is a global coalition that fights internet shutdowns around the world. And this coalition was launched in 2016. And since then, we continue to push back against internet shutdowns. All right. I just want to start with the discussion. And so one sector that has really been hit hard by the conflict as well as the internet disruption is the health sector. And since we have you here, Dr. Kibrom, could you share with us how the internet shutdown has affected your work as a health professional? And also in responding, how has it impacted access to emergency services, resources, as well as communication?
Thank you. Still, I'm going to have some problem with the network, but I hope you will listen to what I will say. The internet connectivity is very poor, and it might interrupt in between. So as everyone was saying, the first thing after the internet and the telecommunication cuts down or complete shutdown of these services in Tigray, the first thing that we lost was communication with our family. Everyone here is under siege. So many people have been affected by the war directly. Many people have died, and many big problems. And they cannot, get help from their family who live abroad because they don't have any communication. And the people living outside Tigray want us to know the conditions of their family, and they cannot reach them. This is one of the basic, problems that we face every day. People come to my office. If there is any chance that they can call their family members, we have a very limited access in our hospital, but the entire Tigray is completely in a darkness, in electricity as well as in telecommunication. The second thing that is that the internet shutdown has affected us is, especially with the lack of telecommunication, the hospital, it cannot run without communication, live communication with the doctors. For example, if there is someone in the emergency room, then the doctor there, they might need for consultation, other doctors' help. So they have to call them either for their opinion, or they might call them to the hospital and assist them either in surgery or in evaluating these patients. Now, because we cannot do that, the emergency physicians have to go to the home to home of these doctors. If they are not available, then there is no way of reaching doctors as well as the other health professionals, unless you are lucky and they stay at home. You cannot run, using cars because there is no fuel. You cannot, depend entirely in communication because it doesn't exist. So this is one thing. For consultations, for communications with other departments, with other specialists, subspecialists, you need the telecommunication service. Patients, you know, if they have some worry, if they have some concern, they have to call their doctors and ask whether they should be, you know, whether they should have come to the hospital or stay at home. Again, there is no communication. They have to come even at night and day. It could be trivial, but they have to come in person. You might even, you know, want to speak to one doctor in the hospital. They are still in the hospital, but the hospital is very big. You have to run every corner of the hospital. You cannot, you know, we don't have this beep system as well, this badger system. So this is one of the problems that we face every day. The other is certain items in our laboratory equipments, modern equipments in laboratory, in radiology. They need continuous, you know, internet access. They have to be boosted. They have to be updated. Some of them, they have to be calibrated. And some of the machines, they need communication or contact with the provider. Because of this, in 2 years, there is no internet connection, means we couldn't connect it to the internet, and these are outdated, out of function. Every time you want to open the gadget, it asks you, please connect the internet, or please update the software and so on. And lots of our machinery, and it needs strong connection, not just like this, what we are having now. Because of this, lots of equipment are out of function. Whenever we finish some reagents or some spare part is needed for the equipment, we have normally to send the detailed request to the provider. Then because of this, again, because of the lack of communication, some of the providers, most of our equipment is from General Electric, is GE, so we couldn't, contact them. Whenever we ask them, whenever we have the chance, they want to help us, but they need this connectivity. So this is one of the big problems that we face day to day due to the internet as well as the telecommunication cut down. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The submission you just made makes me see this shutdown, and maybe for those who are not familiar with internet disruptions, clearly this is a matter of life and death, because people need access to these essential services. They need access to their doctors to know what they are supposed to do, what medications they are supposed to do, what tests they are supposed to run. And so denying like the laboratory you just mentioned access to the internet would mean that you would not be able to run the test and to know what is happening in people's body, and that could actually cost their life. So this is how internet shutdowns affect people, and that is why it's crucially important for us to continue to raise awareness about it and to urge authorities to stop imposing them. I wanted to follow up with you to see if did you work with vulnerable groups like children and persons with disabilities during this, and how would you say that this internet disruption, as well as the service that you provide to vulnerable communities, was hampered by the internet shutdown? That is, if you worked with vulnerable groups.
Yeah, we work with vulnerable groups. We have the people with disabilities or special abilities. They have to come to our hospital for various reasons. Some people who have hearing or vision or mobility problems, they have to come to our hospital. And as you remember, the war when it started, it was in the top peak season of COVID. So that time we had to address the people. We have to teach them how to protect themselves, how to stay at home, how, continuous update. Then once it was completely, cut out and we left in darkness, there is no television, there is no, because of the electricity at home, and we couldn't address, in social media because it was completely gone out. And this has facilitated, especially for the vulnerable groups, following the war, when the Ethiopian and Eritrean army come to Tigray and capture Maqala, there was this rampant sexual-based violence against everyone, including the people with special ability or disability. So they should have been, protected, and we should have been, advocating that when it happens. And these invading troops, that they were using this blackout because of there is no communication, because these victims cannot report it timely, and they thought it will be, remain silent and it will not make it out to the world. But once we've got this limited access, we were able to go each village and the town where we have access or where the TDF is available. Then we could have, we were able to collect the data and to summarize as well as to report. And these are vulnerable children, including, girls as young as 6-year-old who are involved in the sexual violence. And these are, people with mental problem, they were being killed in the street because of the curfew. They don't know, you cannot make them understand what curfew is. Normally they sleep in the street or they walk during the night. And during that curfew period, many of these people with mental health problem were killed. And we used to find them, lying in the streets of Nagala as well as other small towns. So it affected everyone, including minors and special people with special abilities.
Thank you. And just putting everything into context, having the COVID pandemic happening in 2020, at the same time, an ongoing conflict, and then people being denied access to the internet just underscores how much of an impact this has had on people's lives. Because at the height of the pandemic, we had government and authorities urging people to work from home, rely on the internet to do your work, and prevent or avoid public spaces. At the same time, here is a community that has been cut off such an essential service. Thank you so much, Dr. Kibrom. I'll come back to you, but I want to move to, for us to also look at, maybe Liake, I'm coming to you to tell us more about your work. You had more like a coding club prior to the war. And so we'd want to know a bit more about the intention or what motivated you to put together such a club, and what did you want to achieve with it? And then how has the internet shutdown more like crushed this dream that you had?
Thank you, Felicia. The Tigray course was started to help seed digital culture in Tigray. So as such, we wanted to start a club where students, mainly focusing on teenagers, high schoolers, we wanted to teach them coding, to introduce them to the digital world, to show them, and then as a gateway to move Tigray into the knowledge economy in a sense. So it's an initiative to teach kids how to code, to introduce students to computer science, to knowledge economy in general, in related fields, and of course, as a gateway to other professions as well. So we started this because we believe that the world is now in a digital age, and our people in general deserve to run with the world. They need to go with the world. They need to be in a position to communicate with the rest of the world, to compete with the rest of the world, and to be in the economy where the rest of the world is running. So that's how we started it. And we specifically chose to do it with kids because our aim is to affect the generation. And we believe that if we focus in high schoolers, the high schoolers could motivate the elementary students. And then the high schoolers, once they go, they can also be pulled to the university. Later on, of course, we have a 5-year plan of including coding and digital literacy in an intensive way, both in the education curriculums. We want to influence the government to include that. We also had plans of starting the coding schools, full schools, summer schools, also to introduce coding to elementary and KGs as well. So our plan is basically to help our people come to the digital world. That was our plan as Tigray codes. So on how does this conflict affect us? My friend Goitu, who is also a co-founder of Tigray codes, all my friends, when this genocidal war started, they were in Aksum. We were teaching kids how to code, going from place to place. We started in Maqala, we did it in Shira, and then our third round was in Aksum. That's when the Aksum massacre occurred, when we basically were teaching kids how to code. So some of my friends had to walk on foot and faint in the middle of nowhere, and farmers have to carry them to keep them alive. And some of my friends have to witness the massacre and barely escape themselves while their friends were killed. For me, I wasn't in Aksum at that time. I was supposed to join them after a week. I was in Raya fighting for the locust epidemic. At that time, there was desert locust invasion. So I was there, and then I was supposed to join them the next week. And then the invasion happened, and then they also watched the Aksum massacre, which is reported that at least 800 to 1,200 people were massacred in the middle of the street. So how did it affect us? I think the massacre tells it all. Internet is now a luxury. To teach kids to code is a luxury. To teach kids to survive is a luxury. That's the thing now, it's about survival. Kids haven't had education for 3 years. Internet is a luxury for them if they can't go to school. Their teachers have no salary, they can't teach. The schools have no budget. They can't have anything. 90% of the Tigray schools are deliberately destroyed, 90% of them. All of the schools were used as camps by the invaders, by the genocidal invaders, and as camps for refugees, for IDPs, for internally displaced people from all over Tigray. So school hasn't commenced in Tigray for the last 3 years, starting from COVID and then the genocidal invasion. Also, I was working at the university, so I talked with some of my university friends that work at the NGOs that happen to have a little bit of internet connection. There can also be no education at the universities either, because the universities also need internet. Internet is a source of information everywhere now in the world, in the current world. No one can operate can do any sort of education without internet at the university level. So I think at this day and age, coding has become a luxury. Basically living is now a struggle by itself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laike, and indeed, having this really, I'm even speechless. This is exactly some of the testimonies we've received whenever the internet is shut down during a conflict, and it allows authorities to cover up these heinous crimes against civilian populations. And also the fact that this amazing initiative you brought together, or you put together with your friends to help develop your community, to build capacity of people to also be able to use or benefit from what the internet and digital technologies present, has somehow become more like a mirage. You don't know if you would be able to go back to it. The hopes that you had, you don't know how much of that is left. And right now you've left Tigray and you are in Kenya. And we've received, for instance, there was a similar story from Cameroon, where young developers also had to leave the English-speaking area when the internet was shut down for so long. And most of them have moved to different countries. And so that community is going to lose the contribution of these young people in the tech industry, for instance. They wanted to, I think the region wanted to be like the Silicon Mountain, where like young technologists, young people that are interested in tech can also build their capacity and be able to contribute to development in their area. But then with the shutdown, it made it really difficult for them to do this, and so they had to leave. And this is really concerning. And I just wanted to hear from you if what do you foresee for Tigray codes? Is it something you want to go back to, or in what way do you think you can still contribute to the development of the young kids in Tigray, and with the current developments regarding the truce or an end to ceasefire that was announced 2 days ago? I just want to understand, if things come back to normal, do you still have hope that you go back and continue this important work that you've been doing?
Thank you, Felicia. As you said about how people disturbed all around the globe after the start of the conflict, after the start of the Tigray genocide, all of us, like I went to Kenya. Of course, I was in Tigray, rarely survived. My story is also long. I wrote about it in an article. I also barely survived days. Some of my friends were killed. Some of them jailed. Some of them are in Addis now, some of the co-founders. The others became refugees in Europe. The others went to Rwanda. So only 1% is now in Tigray. We don't even know if our students are alive or dead. Most of them were bright young kids. Yeah, so our people don't even know what is signed in their name now. They don't have internet. They cannot see the agreement. They don't know what is signed in their name. They can't see it. They can only hear the propaganda coming from both sides now. That's also part of the effect of the shutdown of the internet. We can't see what is signed in our name. Do we have hope? I don't know, we will see. Of course, we kept the communication going. Those of us that survived the genocide, we kept the communication going on how we can reestablish it, because we owe it to our people. And yes, we plan to come back stronger and give whatever we can back to the kids to grow it even more. Yes, we plan to do that, and we are already in discussion with many people, including the founders. But it's very hard, you know, the survival issue is there. So most of our focus is in survival. Most of our focus is in helping our people survive this genocide. Because even for myself, I haven't heard from my family after leaving. I heard for the first time yesterday a call from my aunt. And it's very scary. Scary when you hear from them. When you should be happy, you are scared. Are you going to hear some bad news? But yes, we should keep the struggle going, and we hope to rebuild, and we hope to continue this initiative and more initiatives for our kids, our brothers, and then hope to bring a more developed and prosperous Tigray. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I know this is a very difficult conversation for all of you on the panel. So please let me know if it's getting too much for you, and we would find a way around it. But then I really appreciate you being able to share your experiences with us. And one thing you said, that the people in Tigray don't even know what has been signed on their behalf because they cannot access information. And that is one of the calls we are making in our campaign that the authorities, particularly the African Union that is mediating this, to ensure that restoration of internet access is a priority so that people will be able to know what is happening on their behalf, as you said, and also as a beginning of restoring access to all other essential services that have been destroyed during the conflict. So we would keep this campaign going, and we would continue to raise awareness about how much of importance it is for the internet to be restored, for people to know what is being discussed on their behalf, and also be able to actively contribute to the discussion, as you've just said. So thank you so much for being able to share these experiences with us. I would move to Zara. And I think last year you did mention that you were caught up in Tigray at some point when the conflict broke out. And with the internet disruption, I want to know how that affected you. And I know you were also trying to go back to Germany, where you are based, and it was just a whole situation for you. So could you let us know how that affected you and how you finally made it out of Tigray or back to Germany?
Okay, thank you, Felicia. Before I start, I would like to thank Dr. Kyprium and also Leake for sharing. It really touched me. Yeah, about myself. Some people might have read about it, some not. I don't know. I went to Marelle 6 weeks before the war broke out for personal reason. I have my father's originally from Tigray, my mother's originally from Germany. I grew up in Germany, and I had a family case, so that's why I went to Tigray. Most of the time I stayed in Marelle, but was also in other regions as my family is distributed in Tigray. And from one day to the other one, the war broke out, as we all heard in the news, and that obviously also meant for me that I was disconnected from my family in Tigray with who I wasn't living at that time, as well as from my German family, like my mother, my siblings, also my employer. So I was disconnected from one day to the other one, and this impacted me a lot because I couldn't inform my family that I was okay at the beginning. I couldn't know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're being worried about. And it also impacted me a lot in terms of communication with my relatives who had to, like, if they wanted to visit me within Tigray to check on me, they had to basically also come by feet. And at one point also the bombardment of the city of Marelle started. And that was obviously also quite dangerous to take those walks. Like one of my cousins in particular still decided to do that. That was sorry, I'm a bit nervous because of all the stories, but that was very impactful for me. Also, I have been in the situation that I was running away from an airstrike myself on one day, where I was alone in the city of Marelle. I have to announce I don't speak Tigrinya, I speak a few words. So I was basically really alone, and they bombed a place which was like 10 minutes by feet from the location where I was. Obviously, my good mother knew about that, but she couldn't do anything. And I was just lost at one point. And I guess that's something what is generally happening in war situations, that people are somehow in different areas of the city, of the whole region, and they cannot inform their relatives what is happening around them. So that was very impactful for me. Obviously, at one point, I also had to leave Tigray again, as you shared before. I'm based in Germany, so I also was looking into solutions how I could leave. There was the UNICEF who supported people to leave Tigray. I I personally had struggled to be in communication with them, which was again the reason of missing communication. So people had to also, I think Kibram shared this about doctors, it's the same with other situations that you manually have to go somewhere to say like there will be a convey the next day, which you can take. So I basically missed the first 2 convoys to leave the city, and the third one I chose myself to not leave, as that was around the time when they were announcing a heavier bombardment of the city of Merelle. So I decided to stay there, which again also added more pressure on me in terms of not having talked to my mom for weeks and not informing her what is going on my side. I managed to leave Merelle after phone lines were open for a short time. I think they were open for a few moments, and that was for me also the first time when I was in communication with the German embassy, who was also sharing with me that there were lots of Germans somehow disappearing. They didn't know how to reach out to them, and that was for me a rather lucky coincidence to get the opportunity to leave around that time. But also that was not like an easy journey again because of missing communication. We had to buy flight tickets, and then I couldn't buy them because you can only buy them online, and no one was willing to help me and so on. So there were like more occasions why this was difficult to leave. But yeah, I would still say I was very privileged during the time, and also only stayed 6 weeks. So yeah, and then basically after that I came back to Germany and started to talk more about Tigray, about the internet shutdown, but obviously also about all the other topics like the atrocities, the siege in particular. And yeah, I hope I answered your question good enough.
Yes, you did. And one thing you said that is actually one of the messaging we use is the fact that internet shutdowns endanger lives. You mentioned there was a bombardment, you were caught up, you didn't know where to go, you didn't speak the language, and so how to even get home becomes really difficult. And that is what makes internet shutdowns really horrifying, because of the time that they happen. They don't just happen when you are relaxing at home, or just, it happens when you really want to use it, when you are on the street protesting, when a conflict is happening and people are running up and down trying to find safe havens or safe places to go to, and then you don't have access to the one thing you can also rely on to be able to navigate such a difficult situation. So thank you for sharing. And I just wanted to check how the communication with your family back in Tigray has continued. Have you been able to talk to any of them? Yeah, if you'd want to share that as well.
Yeah, so after I came back, there was a very short time when there were landlines at least available. The internet was never available. I think last year in summer, the landlines were also gone, and that was also the moment for me when communication broke up completely. I was able to receive some letters at some point from relatives or friends of relatives who left the region. Most of my family is still in Tigray from my father's side, but I was able to receive some letters. At a later point, I also managed to hear a few times, not very often, from at least one person, which was relieving, but there are still lots of open questions. I also receive sometimes messages which are very concerning, and yeah, I cannot really do a lot about that by just hearing, and then the call breaks up again, and you don't really know what exactly is going on.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I just want to remind our audience that you can drop your questions or comments, or if you were all affected by the shutdown in any way and you are comfortable to share, please drop your your message in the chat, and then towards the end of the session, we would go through some of your questions or the messages that you've shared and read them for our audience. Okay, I want to move to Michael to also share your story with us. You did mention that you have done or you're doing some advocacy to raise awareness about what is happening in Tigray, including Tigray Art Collective. So can you tell us more about what this is? And then what are some of the challenges you faced regarding your advocacy work as a result of the internet disruption?
Thank you, Felicia. Again, I'm Michael with the Tigray Art Collective, and the Art Collective is using mixed media artists from various backgrounds in the Tigrayan diaspora. And our goal is to share our culture and our message and of our struggles through art. And our goal is also to raise awareness and funds by leveraging emerging technologies such as NFTs in the cryptocurrency space. Our goal is to gain exposure and just maximize awareness to our mission. So in the midst of the breakout of the Ukrainian war, a lot of the crypto advocates were by default Ukrainian descent. So we've seen in a matter of 3 to 4 days, $50 million being raised using cryptocurrencies. And we would like to not only mimic that, but also kind of create a more global awareness in the crypto community. And one way we can do that is by exposing them to our struggles via art. Raising awareness has been, in this conflict, has been severely difficult because it has been underreported. So a lot of times when we're advocating and kind of even speaking at conferences and gaining engagements, a lot of people are, dumbfounded and severely unaware. So the underreporting has affected our advocacy because people do not comprehend, and then also because this conflict has the government opposing. Has an opposing narrative, it becomes difficult because there are many opinions and voices in people's ears. So aside from that, even as we have raised funds, it becomes really difficult to provide access since we're still under the siege. Even though we have come across a peace agreement, we still have seen actions that point otherwise. So our goal is to curate a global campaign, not only raise awareness, but funds using pushing for internet access and pushing for the siege to end.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much. And for bringing that perspective, the work you're doing with regards to art and culture and all that, and how the internet shutdown has affected you. I think one of our speakers has still not joined, so we'll just go ahead. Maybe he would join us at some point, but I want to move to Eden to tell us a bit more about what you used to do in Tigray as an education psychologist, and were you using the internet and any digital platforms to carry out your work with your clients or patients?
Thank you, Felicia. And thank you, everybody. I can relate to everyone's story here. But thank you, Laacha, for that as well. Just to give a little bit of a perspective, I used to live in Maqala. I moved to Tigray, Maqala, for almost a year and a half before the start of Tigray genocide. And I was working there and from SOS Maqala, so Hermann Gemeiner School, which is like an international school that is supported by Germany and also international people basically who have been supporting the school. It has an orphanage, but it also has a stay boarding school in that mentality. So it was a big setup that has schools throughout the whole Ethiopia, including in Amhara, Afar, Addis Ababa, and also Tigray, Maqala. So that's where I used to work. So I had the privilege of learning where I came from, learning the language, learning how to understand what it means to be within that, the culture of being a Tigrayan itself, learning to be a Tigrayan overall. I'm still in the process of learning the language really well and speaking it. So unfortunately, I witnessed the start of Tigray genocide. One day I went to work, and then the following morning I woke up to Abiy Ahmed Ali giving a speech on the radio, and there was no electricity, no telecommunication, there was no transportation. Everything that I know about Maqala used to be a really busy city, was just basically a ghost town. I did not know what was going on. But I still went to work. There was no taxis. The taxis were they were just quiet. Everything was just so quiet. And I just saw a lot of people just using their phones that had like a radio FM, and people were just had their phones to their ears, and everyone was listening, but there was really nothing going on. My electricity was not working. There was no TV or anything, but I really did not know I was walking into that when I left my home. So I stayed there, of course, for 3 months. And as Zara mentioned it, there was basically no communication, no nothing. So that day, I remember I went to work and I came back. Everyone was really confused at school and at work. My colleagues, staff members, my students, everyone just had a question mark. Nobody really knew what was going on, besides the fact that something has happened and we had to take measures. That's what I heard. But I didn't really pay attention too much to that announcement from Abiy Ahmed Ali. So, and I didn't really take it I didn't consider it as something serious in all honesty. So that afternoon, I went to my grandmother and my aunt's mom, which I call her my grandmother, but I went there to see them because I couldn't call anyone. And that's basically it for 3 months. Overall, there was no communication. So for me, I had to personally walk into my family or my friend's house just to see them, to talk to them. And every day, like, a week passed, 2 weeks passed, and then that's when I knew, oh, this is serious. This is really bad. This is happening, and it's not, there was no communication that I used to have with my mom, who is in the United States. I was not able to call to anybody, wasn't even Tigray, not forget about coming abroad and actually talking to somebody abroad. And so as time passed, civilians were no longer safe in their homes. We were told, basically I saw people leaving their homes and going into hidings. And there were a lot of talks saying that like we should start going into hidings because we see military troops coming into the city. My family, my friends all basically advised me, you need to go stay away with other distant family, or because I was living by myself, or you need to go into hiding with your neighbors. Just figure out something, but you cannot be alone in Maqala. So that's what I was told. And after a month, I decided, okay, it's time for me to go. I do believe, because I couldn't really do anything in my home because again, the no electricity, no internet. My fridge can't work. Just little things that you really don't think about too much about every day. And of course, I couldn't cook. I couldn't make anything. Basically, we were like, okay, we need to go. I have to go with somebody that I know is going to, just take care of us as a whole. Like, so I moved only like 20 minutes away from Maqala and Fiha, and I was there with some family members for basically the whole 3 months. Within that time, it was really hard. I was every day, every night, we used to hear gunshots and bombings and people screaming, military men just harassing people just coming into homes and doing checks and just like checking you. You cannot, every time you're in a taxi, they will stop the taxi and just do a checkup, and you don't know what it is you're being checked for. I've been asked so many times who I am, just because I had a different type of ID that shows that I was an American, but also I was an Ethiopian. So that ID looked really confusing to a lot of the military people who were checking it. And I was always the one who kept me aside until the very end to say, like, who are you? Why are you here? Why are you here to what are you trying to do here? And I had to repeat my stories over and over again. I live here. I am a Tigray. I work here. This is my home. Literally, I'm going there. So every day when we heard those gunshots, the bombings, the drones were coming, flying, every night we used to hear the screams. Every morning we heard church bells and mourners every morning. And every morning we just, there was somebody that was within like, I don't know, a kilometer or so away that just was killed last night. Those screams were not just screams of people having fun. They were just people, women were being raped, things that we were hearing every morning. It was just this weird, surreal thing where you don't know why it's happening. And if you scream Bloody Mary, is anyone going to hear you? Why are you doing this? There was no questions. I was really angry. I'm still an angry person, but I was so angry. I was asking questions to these troops and military people, and I was told, Ada, you need to stop doing that because you're going to get yourself possibly killed or something else. So that's just a little bit of a background of what we were witnessing. But every morning there were church bells. Every morning we saw mourners and crying. And what happened? Somebody was killed last night. What happened? This happened. They dropped a child on his head. They just things that you would hear that you think it should be on a movie, not happening next door while you're sleeping. And we were told, just turn off any lights if you had any lights. We were using candles. We were purchasing so many candles because there was no light. So the price of a candle went so high that people used to buy them in bulks, and just so they can have it. We were eating lunch, and we were eating dinner time around 4:30, 5 o'clock before the sun set. So then we don't have to worry, doing things in the middle of the night or trying to eat at night. So that was basically a little bit of it, but I felt like I witnessed what it means to strip away the freedom from someone, and to be so free that you are not going to be held accountable for anything that you can do. You can just get away with it. And that's what it did. For me, that's what Tigray genocide did to my family, to myself, to my country, to my people, in all honesty. So my background as an educational psychologist, I used to work and I used to be a counselor in Maqal as well at the school. I was helping our students and staff members and teachers with counseling and also preparing materials for designing and also managing students' individual IEPs. So that included basically applications for colleges and universities, and it was focused on essentially giving a personality trait, skills, traits, characteristics, so then that way we know what kid wants to go where. So we had that effective teaching method, but also that effective teaching to a staff member, so that way they can apply that in their everyday teaching, or also they can be better teachers. I was also teaching grade 11 English at that time. Everything I did in Maqala basically involved working with people within Maqala, but also abroad, because we were preparing for the higher education, and then we were helping students submit college applications and the entrance exams that they need to take. So there was all that, and also preparing early identification and intervention methods for students. So I organized seminars and webinars in Maqala University with mental health aspect of it from that perspective, but I also used basically the internet just like everyone else. I used to use it to stay connected with my family and friends who were still in Maqala or who are still in Tigray right now, but also abroad. So far, I have only heard the whereabouts of one of my students and two of my colleagues and one of my the teacher, one of the parent of one of my students, where the school I was working at. So I don't know where anybody is. So that's that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aiden. And also, I know this is a lot for you to share, but then you are also affiliated with the health professionals. And so just like Dr. Kibrom shared his experience with us, could is there anything you want to share with that in that regard? Bearing in mind that please take it easy on yourself and just let me know if you don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
No, it's fine, Felicia. I think the least we can do is talk about it. So as a health professional that work for Tigray, we are HPN for Tigray. We are a non-profit, non-political, non-partisan organization who have been the organization was started right after the start of Tigray genocide, and to just basically help and address the healthcare needs in Tigray. As Dr. Kubram has mentioned, it basically almost 97% of the healthcare sector in Tigray has collapsed. So basically, it's just non-existent right now. For us, of course, from the obvious things of when it comes to us wanting to help our people, wanting to help our doctors who are doing everything they need to do day and night. They're trying to hold their oath and keeping their promise to their people. The least we can do here is to give them the tools and the supplies and the medication and the access for them to complete their job and to feel that they have a meaning and a reason why they're there. And it really breaks my heart every time to hear Dr. Kubram, Dr. Fasika, or the professionals on the ground who are doing everything to save a child, but they can't because they don't have gloves, they don't have just basic tools like gauze and IV fluid or anything like that. Does that matter? So I think Dr. Karum has already mentioned most of it, but for us, of course, whenever we want to send anything, even our in-kind donations, even the supports that we're able to get from the international NGOs that are providing us with a little bit of support, we cannot send that in timely manner. We can't send things take days, if not weeks or months, actually, forget days. Anytime we want to send money that is needed, for example, if Dr. Kubram and the team is ready to purchase something or they have availability, we can't just go to the bank and put money in their bank accounts or access so that way they can go ahead and just purchase what they need to do. But that is a luxury. In all honesty, I wish that was our problem right now, but our problem is that complete blackout. So I'm going to be direct and to the point about this, is that if it's health professionals or not, no one in Tigray can call for help. That is the key point. 7 million people, they can't ask for help. The call that they're calling is not being answered. The family and friends who have been supported by their families in diaspora have not been able to be within reach as they used to be a dial away in the past. 7 million civilians, 7 million over that. We keep saying 7 million and we're exhausted saying that number because it's a lot more than that. But 7 million civilians who have worked day and night to raise their children, to work as a citizen of the country, of the world, they're basically being held hostage for 23 months under a complete virtual blackout. Hostage, that is basically what it means. When you can't call for help, when you can't escape the region, when you can't say, this is what's happening to me, I want the world to hear my voice or my plea, you are a hostage. You are unlawfully being held under concentration camps. They may be able to move within their own regions, but they would have to walk. They would have to find a way to get there. As Dr. Karam has mentioned, that there's no fuel, there's no transportation, there's no telecommunications, there's nothing. Just imagine every single day where you have to walk to go do something, but not knowing whether if you're going to be able to find that. There was questions like things like this that made my family want to go crazy. Once they missed me for almost like a day, because there were people coming to see me. There were bombings in the city. They panicked. Where is this person? And I was just downtown. I was as a family member, just staying there because we were hearing gunshots. So they said, stay here, don't go by yourself, because I had to walk back home. So the fear, that the not knowing every day, the not knowing, that is something that none of us can imagine. So in all honesty, Today is that where the world is saying it's been 2 years of Tigray genocide. What the world is not telling us is that how hard it is for a child who has not spoken to her mother. It's for a man who witnessed the sexual assault of his wife by the Ethiopian and Eritrean troops, and then just watching her dwindle every day because she's not able to get the help that she needs. For a newborn baby that has not received a vaccination, and that how it can affect him for his entire life, the complications that this child would be foreseeing. people are not speaking about the suffering of people because of a simple but yet very effective siege. That siege is I've said it, this is a perfect crime. In all honesty, the siege was a perfect crime and is a perfect crime because it's still happening. Whether we signed a quote unquote peace agreement just yesterday, we're still seeing targeting of civilians. We're still seeing dropping of airstrikes that are happening right now that have killed civilians and injured civilians. Dr. Kubram can go ahead and testify to you how it is hard to save civilians that have been killed. And he's said it over and over again. People ask us the immediate casualties of a person that has been, targeted, but what they don't say is what happens when that patient or when that person goes to the hospital. How when you can't save them, that number is increasing. This siege is a cover-up of Tigray genocide. That is why the Ethiopian government made sure that it turned it off on November 3. And then I was one of those people who witnessed that, because the following morning, I woke up to a dead silence, a ghost town. That's what happened. And so we can go ahead and cheer. We can go ahead and be very happy about the peace agreement, but it is just the key point is implementation, and that it's more than a draft. It's just a piece of paper right now. It needs to be implemented, and that implementation needs to be lifting of the siege right now and right this second, and allowing humanitarian aid into Tigray, and allowing people to speak for themselves. Because so we can go ahead and say our people can speak, so we're not screaming Bloody Mary, and Tigray genocide could be witnessed. The biggest challenge right now, the internet and communication that has been shut down entirely in Tigray, is basically wiping the meaning of never again, and also, again, getting away with genocide. That is what happened when you turn off an internet for 23 months in a region that is 7 million people are residing in. So thank you, Felicia.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I really like how you've put it, the helplessness that comes with internet shutdowns, and even just a normal day, you stepping out, and maybe you normally come home at a particular time, and your mom will start calling you, when are you coming home? Are you okay? And all that. Just imagine, even when you don't pick up, not because it's intentional, but maybe you are caught up in something else, and she starts panicking and she calls everyone in the family, and then you check your phone and you have like 20 missed calls. So just imagine how this would be. She doesn't have the option to call. She doesn't have the option to hear from you. She doesn't have the option to send you a message in any way. And it's just too much psychological trauma for people to handle whenever the internet is shut down. And in everything happening, that is what the internet shutdown does. It enables authorities to cover up all the horrifying things that are happening at a particular time. And we need accountability. We need those responsible for crimes, those responsible for violating human rights, to be held accountable. And the internet and digital platforms give activists like all of you on this call the opportunity to be able to raise awareness about them, to speak about them freely, and to let the world know what is happening. And so I just want to take this time to appreciate all of you and all the activists that have been raising awareness about what is happening, and how the internet blackout has made it really difficult for all of you. We are in solidarity with you, and that is why we continue to amplify your voices. We continue to amplify the personal impact of internet shutdowns. And I think that alone should be able to tell the world that this is an act that has to stop. It is something that we shouldn't condone in any way. There is no justification for it, and it's unacceptable, because there is no way we can quantify how much internet shutdown allows what is unacceptable to happen. So thank you so much for sharing. And I would move to, I'm even lost for words. Okay, I'll move to Milete to tell us about journalism and how the internet shutdown has affected you. I don't know if you were in Tigray at any point, but we do know that internet shutdowns make it extremely difficult for journalists to cover what is happening, unveil what is happening, and share with the rest of the world. So could you share your experience with us? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Felicia. Well, let me start by just saying that Ethiopia is the first or the second most deadliest place in the world for journalists right now. More than 63 journalists have been killed, jailed, and that's just in the last year and a half. And that's just what we know of, because we really don't know the true extent of everything that's happening. I kind of want to just take a step back for a minute, though, before I dive into that. We have to think about why there's an internet shutdown and a complete blackout in Tigray and other parts of Ethiopia, if we're being honest. There are autocrats and tyrants and dictators who want to control the narrative. They want to tell you what's happening so that it can be favorable for them. And the result of that is you end up not hearing the stories about like the ones that Lake shared about the Aksum massacre, or when Dr. Kubram talks about people dying because you can't plug in your equipment to do a surgery to save a life. These are the stories that are being silenced when you completely black out a region and deny them the ability to communicate. More than 7 million people are being silenced and have been silenced over the past 2 years. And again, like Eden said, that number is much higher. There hasn't been a census in the country for quite some time. So what narrative is this government trying to give? And this is true in many societies where you have genocide and you have tyrants and dictators who want you to believe one thing and want the people to be silenced. But as the story is in Tigray, the story that the government is giving you is that he's this Peace Prize winner, this person who loves the Tigrayan people. He's trying to save them from themselves, apparently. They're killing themselves. They're trying to dismantle this beautiful nation, this country of Ethiopia. That's the story that is being told. But if you listen to people like everyone on this call and you hear the truth about what's happening, we hear about gang rape of women and children. We hear about massacres. We hear about the starvation deaths. We haven't even talked about that in much depth, but the number of people who are dying from starvation, early estimates were saying like 50 to 100 people a day. So we really, truly don't understand what is happening to the people in Tigray, and that's intentional and it's by design. So what is the job of a journalist? A journalist's job is to come in and elevate the voices of all of these people, everyone who is on this panel, people who are in Tigray, who are the victims of this genocide. That is a journalist's job. And that has meant quite literally death. It has meant jail. It has meant harassment. It means journalists have had to flee the country. Local journalists have had to flee the country in order to tell the stories because their homes are being broken into, their laptops are being confiscated, they're being run off the road just for telling the stories out of Tigray. There is a local TV station called Dinounce in Tigray that was the target of an airstrike by the Ethiopian government in an effort to silence the voices of Tigrayans, in an effort so that those stories cannot come out, because Dinounce is one of the few that was able to get us information via satellite. So this is the reality of being a journalist. Whether you're, and frankly, that carries out into the diaspora, where I personally have been maced. I've had my tires slashed. There are Tigrayans whose businesses have been burned down because they're using their voices to speak up for people who are being silenced. It's a really dangerous place. The information, we're not getting even a fraction of the truth in terms of what's happening in Tigray. And one of the impacts of that is a lot of the world doesn't believe it's as bad as what's being told. They'll say things like, these reports are unverified, or we can't confirm things. Well, of course you can't confirm it. The region is under siege. You can't go in. However, there's even video evidence, of some of these crimes that are happening. And even then people will say, well, we can't confirm that this video is authentic. So it's the gaslighting that has happened on the people of Tigray has been intense. And to be honest, the entire Tigray, first of all, is a crime scene. The number of crimes that have happened there. The Ethiopian government has kicked out pretty much every major journalist and reporter out of the region. They revoked the licenses of people like BBC. So there's a lot to be uncovered. You know, there's that saying that journalists who use sunshine disinfects. This is true. And that's the reason why this government, and frankly, autocrats and dictators and tyrants around the world, aim to silence journalists and kill journalists and jail journalists. And the world is not responding. The world is not speaking up for these individuals. Instead, the world is turning a blind eye because the government has been so effective in silencing journalists and controlling the narrative that's coming out of Tigray. So it's a really big issue. People like myself, I actually traveled to Sudan in order to try and get the truth. This was in January of 2021, because that's how desperate we were to get information. I mean, we couldn't get anything out of Tigray, especially initially. And so we did the next best thing, was to go to these refugee camps and see if we could kind of gain some information about what's happening there. So, I mean, that's the short story of sort of the impact and the challenge of journalism and journalists. But really, it's our job has been to elevate all of the stories that you've already heard here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Milite. And I do, and I want to re-echo the fact that authorities impose shutdowns so they can control the narrative. And you ask the question that I always ask every time: what are you trying to hide? Why are you shutting down the internet? What do you want to hide? There's a conflict, internet shutdown. There is elections, internet shutdown, protests, internet shutdown. What exactly are you trying to hide? And why would you want to be the one controlling the narrative? These are questions we need to ask all the time. And that is what we need to ask to hold authorities accountable for taking away people's fundamental human rights whenever they shut down the internet. And the fact that internet shutdowns are, I say they are premeditated. You plan that you want to shut down the internet because it will actually give you the power to control the narrative or to cover up whatever actions you want to take against. And it's usually against people that do not agree with those in power. So thank you for sharing that. And also, I know this has been really difficult, but I also want to applaud all the journalists and all media outlets that, or researchers that have been able to get information out about what is happening in Tigray throughout this difficult time. And I just want to say that thank you so much, and continue the great work that you've been doing or you are doing. And I want us to pause a bit. I know I have made you go back to talk about your experiences, and it's too much. So even though the video we are going to play still talks about what most of you have shared, I want our audience to also watch this video and see how the internet shutdown has affected people, and why this is not just a conversation for the panelists here and myself, or Access Now that is organizing this event, or the Keep It On Coalition that is leading this global advocacy against internet shutdown, but a call for all of us to stand up and raise awareness about internet shutdowns, push back against them, whatever they are happening across the world, and to continue to urge authorities to keep it on. So I would pause now and let Sage take us to watch the video, and then we come back and see if we have questions, and then I'll take closing remarks from you, or for spending your precious time with us. Sage, over to you.
Do you know what's happening in Tigray, Ethiopia? If not, It's probably because authorities have deliberately shut down the internet to block the flow of information.
The shutdown is having an immense impact on my life, and I doubt if words can really express it. It feels like a worst nightmare. With killings, starvation, sexual violence, and massive displacement taking place in Tigray, not knowing whether my family members were sick or are alive at all was excruciating. The worst part is that it still continues.
The inability to call ambulances is costing the lives of many pregnant and laboring mothers and patients with acute illnesses. A mother bled to death because she could not access emergency care.
My mom is not even know where she put her phone down in the house. Now she checks it every few minutes. The inability to find out how our families are faring is devastating to her. Now she has dark circles and wrinkles under her eyes. Even her bright smile has dimmed. She laughs, but not like she used to.
Since the start of the conflict in November 2020, authorities have weaponized internet and telecommunication shutdowns to control information, censor populations, and cover up atrocities, including mass killings and sexual violence against women and girls. The blackout is endangering lives, fueling violence, and exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. The world should know what's happening in Tigray. Help us spread the word. Put pressure on authorities responsible for the shutdown to immediately restore internet access and international institutions, including the African Union, to intervene.
Thank you, Sage. And I think this video re-echoes everything that was said on this panel, from personal healthcare and just people's normal daily activities, how internet shutdowns just prevents anything from being normal to people again. From all the stories that we've heard. Okay, I want to come back to all of you. I know this is the second anniversary. I don't want to call it anniversary because we usually anniversaries times for us to celebrate. But then I also would say anniversary because all of you have remained steadfast in letting us know what is happening despite an internet shutdown. And that is something you should all be proud of, and continue to do this work. Just imagine if no one was talking about what is happening in Tigray. It's something we cannot afford to have. And so thank you so much for the brave work that you've been doing. And I want to come back to you all to just give us your closing remarks. We have a few minutes to go, but then let's go around, and I wouldn't mention names. You can just unmute yourself and go, unless it's getting disruptive, and then I'll start mentioning names. So anyone that wants to go first, please unmute yourself and speak. Okay, I have to exercise my power. I would start with Michael.
Thank you for giving me the floor. To recap, one thing that I would like to leave off with is, sitting on this wonderful panel of people that have not only advocated, not only pushed to educate, but also have had their hands involved in aiding and helping heal our people. It is an honor to sit with amongst heroes, and in every way, people that have been advocating for our people, whether they're allies or Tigrayans themselves. We must keep pushing and keep our heads up high. This siege will end no matter what, and our people will gain access once again. And we just have to keep in mind the light at the end of the tunnel. I would like to also add that regardless of the siege, one thing I can honestly say, this has brought our community together. It has really unified us for the same cause, which I'm severely grateful for. And I'm very thankful to, again, see so many people stand up and, take days off from work, being able to basically onboard a second day job, advocating on social media, taking on panel discussions, traveling across the country or across the world to speak at different seminars and to get this message out there, and that our people need us. And I'm proud to be one of many that has done that for our people. So I would like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak on your platform, and thank you to Access Now, and again, thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so much, Michael, for being available whenever we reach out. So we appreciate that. Okay, I would go to Zara.
Yeah, thank you also from my side to Access Now for giving us this platform. Also, in particular, for your petition and the work you're doing. I really appreciate that. I also want to thank the panelists. Some of you I'm following on Twitter already, and I'm really impressed by your work you're doing. It was a pleasure to meet you in this panelist group, and for people who are listening on YouTube. I'm also happy that that you take the time to learn about Tigray and the implications the internet shutdown has on our community. I can just encourage you to also continue or starting to talk about Tigray. What I have learned from my personal activism is that individual conversations, individual stories are very valuable. So that's something what I started to do more, to talk with individuals, to try to explain. And yeah, I hope you join us in our struggle. Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll move to Dr. Kibron.
Thank you, Felicia. Thank you for the organizers now for organizing this event. The very idea of internet shutdown is, to shut our voices, to hide the crimes that is happening in Tigray on a daily basis. So we have to defy it. We don't have to agree with them. We have to expose the crimes that is being committed in Tigray. Everyone out there is, advocating. They are doing all they can. Anyone with access or anyone who has the means to propagate this news to the world, the Tigrayans and the friends and friends of Tigray, they are advocating on behalf of the people of Tigray. So we have to continue our struggle. We shouldn't stop until Tigray is free, until there is an open internet access, until all the crimes come to an end. So thank you very much. I want to thank you all the organizers and participants.
Thank you. I'll move to Lenka.
Thank you, Felicia, and thank you, everyone, including the panelists. Dr. Kibron summarized it amazingly. So they shut down the internet to shut our voices, but let's keep screaming even louder. Have the world listen to our agony, to our genocide. That's how we should react to this shutdown, to this blackout. Not only internet shutdown, but also communications blackout, all in all. No fuel, no banking, no power, no salaries, no everything. So also my special appreciation goes for people that are not from Tigray, but are standing up for the cause of the humanity, for the right thing, for the sake of the righteousness. So I really, really thank you, including Access Now. please keep the struggle going. You are doing the right thing. And we hope that we'll also being the voice, not only for Tigray, but also for the rest of the world that is facing the same oppression, the same shutdown. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Melissa?
Thank you, Felicia. I do want to thank Access Now and thank you for the Keep It On campaign. This is so incredibly important. Thank you for sharing your platform. I hope other organizations and people who are watching this will think about ways that they can also share this message and what doors they can open to invite us into their spaces to keep talking about this. This is not just a Tigray issue. This is a human issue. There are lots of efforts out there to overcomplicate what is happening in Tigray. People want to talk about the politics of what's happening, but some of this stuff is very black and white. Food is not a weapon. You cannot use rape as a weapon of war. You cannot shut people off from communicating. I mean, these are just very basic things that anyone everywhere can advocate for without even understanding the premise or the background of how all of this started. So, and that to me is what you all are trying to do by saying, keep it on. Thank you for uplifting the voices of Tigrayans who have been shut off from the world for 7 years, for 7 million people who have been shut off for 2 years. We're grateful and thank you for your platform. And I hope more people will invite us into their spaces. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I'm left with Eden.
Thank you, Felicia. It's hard to follow up, Melita, but again, thank you for allowing us to speak today. But I just want to say thank you to Access Now, the organizers, the panelists, the funding entities who are here today and watching us. Thank you for allowing us to tell you our stories and giving us the platform to continue to advocate and be a voice for the voiceless people of our people, our Tigray. But I just want to go ahead and remind everyone how to help Legacy Tigray is an advocacy team, which is on Twitter. For those of you who are on Twitter, we advocate 5 times a week. We focus on Tigray genocide, the famine, the siege, the mass rape that's taking place, the bombing, the injustice that is taking place also. So please continue to join us, to tweet. All you have to do is hashtag Tigray and then just say, keep it on, or justice for Tigray. It's really accountability and justice. And we want to really give a never again a meaning. We cannot keep saying never again and repeating it repeatedly almost every 2-3 years. So that is not a thing that we should be allowing the world to do. But I just want to go ahead and say that despite the effort of what we're doing, and also we have allies and humanitarian community that has been advocating on making sure that the Ethiopian government restores communication services, they have refused to do so. But this is really a severe violation of human rights, and which is the core of IGF. And that is something that why we're here today, connecting all people in the safeguard of human rights, and also avoiding that internet and fragmentation that we've been talking about. But it is time to really denounce the weaponization of information and also communication that the Ethiopian government is doing to cover up the Tigray genocide for 2 years right now. So our world is full of laws, but these laws has failed Tigray for 2 years. And I really hope that you understand why I matter, why my family matters, why Melita's family matters, why Tigray family matters, and that they really do take all our stories into consideration today, and why the issues of humanity, it is an issue of humanity. It's not politics. It really is not. And I'm really hoping that we do start prioritizing human first and politics second, and really profit should be at the end. So I just want to say thank you, Felicia, for giving us an opportunity. I really thank everybody. Please do continue to be a voice for the voiceless people of Tigray until they have their voice, and then until they get their internet access. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I would conclude and say thank you all for making time. I really mean it, to share your stories with us, to provide us with the context and whatever is happening. Some of you are in the background. I wouldn't mention names, but when you get this message, I'm referring to you. Thank you so much for all the guidance you've given us and all the contextual nuances you've been able to provide us for us to continue to raise awareness about what is happening. For those who have not had the opportunity to share their stories with us, you can still do that. We have the Shutdown Impact Story Project under the Keep It On campaign, which really is dedicated to uplifting the impact of internet shutdowns on people, the human cost of internet shutdowns. And so through that advocacy, through that storytelling campaign, we've been able to understand somehow how internet shutdowns affect people, but everyone's story is different. Everyone's experience is different. And that is why we need all of you to share your stories with us so we can also amplify them, use them for the advocacy we are doing, and get authorities to stop shutting down the internet. And I really do appreciate your support throughout the 1 hour, 30 minutes. It's really been a difficult conversation, but you have all been determined to get it to the last end. So I really, really appreciate that. And just remember to reach out to us. We are always accessible. We are available. You can just tweet, keep it on, or use the hashtag keep it on, and we'll get your message and we would attend to you. If you don't want to reach out directly to us, you can use that platform to reach out. And then we'll share more information in the chat for those who want to follow up later. Please do that. And we are always accessible, and we are here to uplift the voices of the voiceless and to hold authorities accountable for imposing internet shutdowns, which violates fundamental human rights, and at the same time also allow them to cover up heinous crimes perpetrated against people. So thank you, our audience. Thank you, our viewers, for spending your precious time with us. And we would keep in touch. We would continue to uplift the stories that you've shared with us. And please share your stories with us and let us continue this advocacy to tell the world that it is not okay, no matter what is happening, to shut down the internet, because shutting down the internet is like shutting down people's lives completely, as we've heard. So thank you to the Access Now team for your support in making this event successful, and to everyone, all the partners from Tigray that have continued to support us. I want to say again, a big thank you, and we'll be in touch.